Hey there, it's your boy, back for another session of games of the previous generation that I really think people should play. We're getting into the middle chunk of them now. These are some really heavy hitters. I I really think that people should kind of just play all of these. So it's more a factor of just finding ones that fit into genres or gameplay styles that you particularly enjoy. But kicking off, number 99 is Hyper Light Drifter. This is a game that is not quite Zelda, not quite Metroid, not quite Dark Souls, but clearly inspired and takes its inspiration from all of them. And it's like if you smashed all of those games together into one, and the result is nothing short of amazing. As it turns out, when you take gameplay styles from three really, really good games, the end product ends up being really, really good. It's got some really cool pixel art graphics as well. I love me some good pixel art graphics, and it's just a really good action adventure type game. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Takes all of its ideas to the natural conclusions, and is just really fun and really really cool. Highly recommend Hyper Light Drifter. Also, like on every platform at this point. Number 99 or number 98 is a game from Vlambeer, creators of Nuclear Throne, among other games, and it is Luftrausers. Luftrausers is a like an air combat 2D dogfighting game where you select different ship parts to make different like fighting ships where you get a gun, you get like a body, and you get an engine. All of them behave differently, and the entire goal is to just rack up score and see how high of a score you can get. You will always die. There is no surviving. There's no like end story for getting some secret like that. Nah, it's futile, and you just kill other planes, but it's still super super fun. And I'm not even the biggest on like score based games, but Vlambeer has a way of really making me fall in love with score based games. Luftrausers is cool on most platforms as well. Number 97, I almost made this number 99 just because it's close enough, but it is Tetris 99. They took Tetris and they made it a battle royale, which on paper is exactly something I would want to fuck with, and then in practice, it is absolutely something I want to fuck with. There's so much strategy involved compared to like normal battle Tetris with who you're targeting, playing offensively, playing defensively, and it is the only way I enjoy playing Battle Tetris at this point. They just put like competitive Tetris into Tetris Effect, and I tried it out, and it's just kind of like, nah, I wanna get the real shit. I have still yet to win a game of Tetris 99, making one of the few battle royales that I just can't seem to get the W on. Gotten very close, but never actually won. Number 96 is a game based off of one of my favorite films of all time. Well, the universe of it anyway. It is Alien Isolation. It's a really, really cool survival horror adventure stealth kind of, even walking simulator at times, game where you are set, you're Ripley's daughter, and you are set on a space station, and there is an alien xenomorph that is moving it through the air ducts throughout the entire game and can just show up, kind of like Nemesis from Resident Evil. He'll just show up, and hey, suddenly that's going to throw a wrench in all your plans. Even the fucking like save points in this game have to go through like a boot up process, so you can't just like go and run over to a save point to save yourself. Like you have to, everything is so deliberate and kind of clunky on purpose in a way that really really works for this type of game. Number 95 is yet another good Metroidvania. It is SteamWorld Dig 2. Um, this is set in the weird, like, when I say it's kind of like steampunky robe. It's like a steampunk west thing, but not like Wild Wild West. Wiki 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 wow. But it's a Metroidvania, but also like a little kind of resource gathering. I don't want to quite say like Minecraft, but maybe evokes a few thoughts about Minecraft while you're playing. You don't need to play the first one, and you don't need to play any of their SteamWorld games. It's relatively isolated with its story, but it's just a really fucking good Metroidvania. Like it's a good get in, get out, do a little Metroidvania action. Number 94 is one of the best just kind of arcade games ever made sequel. It is Peggle 2. Sean, stand up and do the little Peggle 2 jump now. I think the Peggle 2, while is maybe lacking with the different playable characters, is generally speaking a more competently made and more fun game than Peggle 1. But both are absolutely stellar fucking games. And Peggle 2, if you've never played it, the crux of it is you're given this grid of pegs that you need to hit, and you have 10 balls, and you have to try to hit select orange pegs that are randomly scattered throughout. And it's super duper fucking fun and addictive as hell. One of PopCap's best ever made games. Coming up after Peggle 2 is one of those games that I feel like it's a really good game that I kind of speak a little negatively about, but it is Celeste. I think that Celeste gets way more praise than necessarily deserves, but it's still a really, really, really competently and well-made 2D platformer, and it's a pure platformer. No like combat, no real action, just fucking bell to bell, some hardcore platforming levels. It's got some. It gets also insanely hard if you go for like all of the kind of side missions that they do, but it's if you just like 2D platformers, it's a pretty solidly made one of those. It's got a lot of like story to it as well. It's very narrative driven with a story about like anxiety and depression, and trying to climb a fucking big snowy mountain. But play Celeste, it's still good, just not as good as everyone maybe says it is. Up next is number 92, which is another game that I backed the development of, but it is What the Golf. It is golf if none of the golf was actually golf. I don't want to necessarily like kind of pigeonhole this game or sell it short by just saying like it's a comedy golf game, but it's extremely funny how it does a lot of its golf. But it'll just be like you go to hit the golf ball and then your character flies forward instead, and then you're hitting your character across. Or sometimes they do like a super hot golf thing where there are enemies that you have to get past and kill. The time only moves when you hit the golf ball. There's tons of really creative things that it does with the golf genre, which it's weird that I have two games that do that on this list. Up next is Grow Home. The point of Grow Home is to climb up a big plant and reach your spaceship. Um, this it has like Gang Beast climbing physics where each of your two bumpers controls one of your hands, so you're kind of like slowly just climbing and jumping your way up this giant plant. It's a 3D platformer. Ubisoft put it out. It's a very simple game. Not very long, just a couple hours, and does not overstay its welcome. And it's just a super good, short little experience. They did another Grow Home game called Grow Up, I think it is, that poisoned the entire game by just adding too much bullshit into it, and it removed. It was no longer a tight little package. Coming up after Grow Home is another Ubisoft published title. It is Assassin's Creed Origins. Assassin's Creed Origins is the Egypt one. This came at a time when the Assassin's Creed formula was really, really stale, and this franchise needed a shot in the arm to kind of get back in the game. And Origins completely remakes the entire like Assassin's Creed system from the ground up to be more. I don't want to call it like Dark Souls like, but they take a more kind of Dark Souls approach to the combat where you're in like little arenas, you're locking on, you're pacing around, you're parrying, you're dodging. Um, Very simple Dark Souls, but it's really cool. Egypt is cool. Running around doing Egypt shit is cool. You get to fight Egyptian gods. The protagonist is very likable. It's a really good new Assassin's Creed game. If you don't like Assassin's Creed, it's probably not going to sell you on the franchise though. After that is it's another sequel in a long-running franchise. It is Wolfenstein: The New Colossus. This is the second of the, well, technically the third, depending on if you want to be a pedantic dick or not, but it's the second one of the new Wolfenstein games. We talked about this a decent amount in the previous discussions, and it's a super fun first-person shooter where you get to kill some fucking Nazis, you get to watch Ronald Reagan get shot, you get to go to Venus, you get to do so many cool fucking things in this game, and it's just a great adrenaline fueled bloodbath first person shooter the way Mama used to make. Uh, I think it's a little worse than the New Order, but it's still very, very, very fucking good. Coming up after Wolfenstein is another Assassin's Creed game that we're hitting really quick. It is Assassin's Creed Rogue. This was the game that came out on the Xbox 360 and PS3 consoles after we had moved to the new consoles. Um, because the those consoles couldn't run whatever the new Assassin's Creed they were putting out at the time was. But Rogue is a game where you play as a assassin who's turned into a Templar, and it's got a really compelling and cool storyline if you're into kind of the universe of Assassin's Creed, because it presents the Templars and the Assassins as really two sides of kind of the same coin, which is a plot line that they later completely ignored and dropped in future games where they just made the Templars cartoonishly evil again. But it gives me hope for what that story could have been had they kind of kept going with this two morally gray factions vying for world domination. Coming up after Assassin's Creed Rogue is Marvel's Spider-Man. It's very difficult at this exact second for me to speak super positively of this game because I finished Miles Morales literally the night before recording this, and Miles Morales blows it out of the water so fucking hard. But Marvel Spider-Man is still a really, really good superhero game. And since I can't talk about Batman Arkham Asylum on this particular game of the generation list, I'm going to say it's one of the better superhero games of the last generation. The swinging feels sublime. It's got pretty fun combat despite being completely outdone in the sequel. Um, it's a really cool game. If you have a PlayStation, this is very much an essential play. It's done by Insomniac, the Ratchet and Clank people, and when you put a good development studio to make a game, it turns out really good. Who would have thought? Coming up after, I happen to spend a little bit of extra time on this to make sure I don't skip any games like I did last time with Spelunky. Coming up is a game I was playing not 24 hours ago, but Borderlands 3. This is the long-awaited follow-up to Borderlands 2, which damn near skipped an entire generation without getting a like a proper follow-up. But Borderlands 3 does all of the things you want a Borderlands game to do while also doubling down on how fucking unfunny that game is. When I was playing yesterday with Matt, one of the things we were just, it's a fun game to play in a party because you don't have to listen to people talk and you can just shoot the shit with your friends. But we immediately turned all of the voice dialogue just completely off because it's a better way to experience that game. But the guns are fantastic. They have way more just wild, way more and more frequent, just wild as shit guns. Um, those are super fun first person shooters despite having abysmal writing, and I feel like that often gets overlooked. But Borderlands 3, very, very fun. Coming up next is Destiny 2. Um, I understand how difficult it is to pitch Destiny to an audience, especially because I just pitched Destiny to someone recently and it went very bad. This game is aggressively unfriendly to try to get into, but not quite as unfriendly as Warframe is. Um, but I'd still, especially now that it's for like free to play, I recommend Destiny 2. I think that that game has solved all of its growing pains that it had from the first one, and I think that there's a lot of stuff to get past if you haven't been keeping up with Destiny this entire time. But they've got Destiny in a great spot. It's a fantastic game, fantastically fun to play. Bungie knows how to make a first-person shooter that feels really, really good to play. People should play Destiny. Coming up after Destiny is something completely different, but it is Chroma Squad. This is a strategy RPG set against a group of teenagers trying to make a Super Sentai show. Um, it, it it has the RPG elements of like needing to build up this studio, getting new costumes and things like that, while being a Sentai themed strategy RPG. And it's really, really fun. They ran into a lawsuit with Saban, who forced them into putting "inspired by Saban's Power Rangers" on the fucking title screen of the game. But it's still like a really good get in, get out strategy RPG. I feel like strategy RPGs are usually like 10, 20, 30 hours long. This one's like 7. So it's a really good, just quick little experience of that genre. And I think that that has merit, as well as it just being a cool Sentai themed thing. Sentai's cool. Hentai is cool. Coming up after that is a deck building roguelike called Slay the Spire. I feel like deck building got this weird like little resurgence there where there was like a solid 6 or 7 months where everyone was making fucking deck building games. But Slay the Spire is where it's a roguelike game where you're given this you can pick different characters who have different sets of cards and you go through maps building and adding new cards to your deck. And it's a game that's like constantly asking you to kind of like break the game, and it's always wanting to make you feel like overpowered or like you've got one over on the game's mechanics, and then it's just that constantly. And it's just a fantastically fun experience if you like either deck building type games or roguelikes. Up next is once again something completely different. It is Flight Simulator 2020. This is one of the first games I have ever wanted to upgrade a PCs just so I could play more. I love flight simulator and like vehicle simulator type games. I own a flight stick. I'm that into flight simulators, I guess. And this one doing what it does with the like AI generated planet is so fantastic. But god damn, is it expecting a strong PC out of you to get in with this, and that breaks my heart. I know it's coming to the Xbox Series X at some point, and if I haven't upgraded by then, that might be the one that kind of gets me to pull the trigger if it can run that. If it can run Flight Simulator really well. After Flight Simulator is another roguelike. You're definitely a lot of good, like certain genres really flourished over this last generation. Roguelikes, I definitely think, were one of them. But it is The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. This is the final or newest, I should say. I won't say it's going to be the final one, iteration of The Binding of Isaac. One of the classic gold standard roguelikes. Binding of Isaac is absolutely fantastic. I feel like it's kind of a hard game to recommend at this point because it's Binding of Isaac. I feel like that's a known quantity, but Rebirth is the newest one that has all of the items, all of the characters, kind of all of the everything in it. And it's a fantastic roguelike. A lot of like meshing of these different powers. That once again, I think a good roguelike is when it makes you feel like you've gotten one over on the mechanics, and Binding of Isaac often feels like that. Coming up after The Binding of Isaac is one of those games that I'm honestly surprised it kind of ends up this high on this list, but it is Recore. This is it's a PS2 ass game, and I mean that in the most affectionate way. It came out and it wasn't finished. It didn't run super well, and it really shouldn't have existed. It got rushed out the door, but I think now they've added in kind of all that missing content, and Recore is totally fine and totally worthwhile, like 3D action platforming game. I struggle to compare it to a lot of things, but it's kind of one of those, like in the PS2, how you could just fucking make a game about anything that does whatever you want, and it's just like vaguely a 3D action type game. Recore School. It's on Game Pass, I'm pretty sure also. Play Recore. After Recore is a game that I think I really negatively look back on because it was very disappointing, but Metal Gear Solid 5 is still a really good game. It's a really good open world stealth game, and while the storyline is fucking terrible and that game did not get finished, um, it's still really fun and really worthwhile to play, albeit I would almost arguably say it is not canon to the Metal Gear lore. So much shit of it just doesn't make any goddamn sense from that perspective. But it's still a really fun open world kind of stealth action game, and I think that that gets overlooked by the shortcomings of the story. But super fun to play, and I'll lump Ground Zeroes in with that because it's more or less the same fucking thing. After that is a game that really took over the planet earlier this year, but it is Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. Um, they made an MXC game basically. It's it's all of these little like jelly bean guys, and they go around and have to get through these obstacle courses, and the only controls are like jump and dive and grab, and that's really it. And doing that, they put you through all these like fun obstacle courses, mostly fun mini games and weird little challenges. And I think it's just an absolute joy to play, easy to pick up, easy to like play, tough to master. I think that Fall Guys is super super fun. It's super cool game, and I'm almost bummed it took people this long to make it. After Fall Guys is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Um, Retro has made another Donkey Kong game, and I didn't like the first Donkey Kong Country Returns very much. But Tropical Freeze is phenomenal. They really got all the shit dialed in this one. Beautiful game. Some of the best music that I have ever heard in a Nintendo platformer, and I really think that's saying something. And I think that it goes toe to toe, if not better, than the original Donkey Kong Country games. Um, some of the levels and like challenge levels in it are really really cool, like Bopopolis, where it's like a rhythm platformer almost to some of the classic swing music. They got David Wise to make new music for this game, which that alone is worth experiencing. After Tropical Freeze is Sniper Elite 4. I have always been like a kind of fair weather fan of the Sniper Elite franchise. But Sniper Elite 4, they took the game and made it open world, or open level, I shouldn't say open world. And it makes the game so much better. Just like having to go around this map, like almost, it really kind of feels almost more akin to like Metal Gear Solid 5, honestly, with kind of its map and the way it's structured. Where here's this map, you are going to complete different objectives all over it, and have like little kind of discrete little arenas for you to do your sniping in. But it's just super fun having the element of needing to move about the map without getting discovered. It's fantastic. I continue to highly recommend the Sniper Elite franchise, and 4 is easily their best one. You can shoot Hitler in the dick in it, and that's always a good thing for a game to have. After Sniper Elite 4 is the first entry in a franchise that I have really been able to get down with, and based on the sales, that is true for a lot of people. But it is Monster Hunter World. Um, this takes all of the Monster Hunter kind of aggressively unfriendly bullshit and makes it a lot more accessible while still being often aggressively unfriendly. But if you're looking to get into Monster Hunter, it's so cool and they smooth out so much of the process. It's a beautiful game. The weapons are super fun, and they just cut out so much of the bullshit while still maintaining that Monster Hunter tedium and repeating the same gameplay over and over loop. But still, it's a fun game. People should play it, but uh, it should be played in multiplayer also. It has single player, but you should really do it in multiplayer. Following up, Monster Hunter World is Persona 5 slash Persona 5 Royal. I'm just gonna be talking about Royal more or less because it's the better version of that game. It is one of the best traditional JRPGs that I have ever played. That is very much a genre that I don't like because they always hit a point where I think they get too tedious for their length because these are normally like 60, 70, 80-hour games. But Persona 5 smashing itself together with the VN elements, it keeps me interested where I'll start to get bored of one part of it and then I can switch over to the other because I think VNs also can kind of get boring after a certain amount of time. But Persona 5, and this is the whole Persona franchise, really combining the two things, I think really, really helps make them more accessible and super duper fun despite their long length. And Persona 5 is the best one of them. After Persona, we have got another accessible game in a long running franchise. It is The Legend of Zelda A Link Between Worlds. This is the sequel game to A Link to the Past, and this is one of the most newbie friendly Zelda games that they have ever made and likely ever will make, and that bums me out because it's also one of the best 2D, really just one of the best Zelda games that they have ever made. It's a game that I would love to recommend to someone to get into the Zelda franchise, but also it sets the bar so motherfucking high that you're going to find few Zelda games that are going to hit it again. It has Ravio in it, who I like. It does a lot of like shifts on Zelda tropes that are really cool, but it's one of the best Zelda games. Play Link Between Worlds. Get a fucking 3DS for it. It's fantastic. After Link Between Worlds is Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil had entered a bit of a rut after the success of 4, the kind of not the okay received 5, and the absolutely hated Resident Evil 6. So Resident Evil 7, they made it a first-person horror game because they saw that PT demo and were like, oh, I think we could fucking do that. And it pays off in absolute spades. It works so well. They get back to the horror roots. It's such a fantastic horror game, such a fantastic Resident Evil game, and I eagerly await the next one. They absolutely revitalize that franchise in a way that's super fantastic, and I love to see it. It's got VR support also, which is too terrifying for me to play because I'm a scared little baby boy. After Resident Evil 7 is number 71. I haven't been saying the numbers for these, but it is Baba Is You. Baba Is You is a puzzle game where you have to move words and like you move around like verbs and nouns and different things to make sentences which turn into rules for the world. So it's really hard to kind of explain verbally, especially in 45 seconds, and better visually. So go look up just Baba Is You first level or Baba Is You trailer, and you can kind of see what this game's about. But it'll be like walls are coins, and then you can walk through walls more or less, or like you is wall, and then you're suddenly controlling all the walls in the game, or like I don't want to call it like a programming game because that's not the way to describe it, but you're just making sentences that change the rules of the world and how you interact with it to complete different puzzles. It's super fantastic. After Baba Is You is hitting the next Jackbox game, and it is Jackbox Party Pack 6. And I'm now becoming slightly concerned that when I described the previous Jackbox that I actually might have conflated it with this one. So I'm doing a quick Google search, and no, Jackbox Party Pack 6 is not necessarily it's not the one with fucking Maverick City or anything like that, but it is the one that has Trivia Murder Party 2 in it, as well as Push the Button, which is like this like almost Among Us type game, Dictionarium, Role Models, and Joke Boat. It's a really good Jackbox title, and I think it's a better on the whole experience than Jackbox Party Pack 5, because I feel like 5 just has Maverick City, and Maverick City whips so much ass. But Jackbox Party Pack 6, really good, one of the better Jackbox games. After that, that leads us to another fantastic party experience, which is Overcooked. And you could also lump Overcooked 2 onto this as well. They're both fantastic in the same general idea, where you and a group of your closest friends are going to become enemies and bitterly hate each other by the end of it because you have to work in a kitchen and move about different meals and create dishes requested by customers in a short amount of time in these kitchens that are just terrible nightmares that are moving around. They have conveyor belts. Everything is strategically placed in places to just make you angry to interact with and assemble these meals. But it is one of the best party games ever made. I've had so much fun playing it with friends, and then absolutely screaming at each other about it. Fantastic party game. After that is I honestly forgot about this game when I kind of said a little bit about Telltale Batman, but it is Tales of the Borderlands, which is not something that should work. It is a narrative-driven Borderlands game written by Anthony Birch, and despite all of that, it is somehow fantastic. It is so well written in so many regards, does so many cool things for the Borderlands world as a whole, compelling characters, and it's just fantastic. Somehow, against all odds, it is the best Telltale game, and I'm going to say that hoping I don't have another Telltale game that shows up later on this list, like I did with Batman, and looks silly. Tales of the Borderlands, absolutely fantastic. Somehow. Number 67 is Call of Duty Warzone. This is the battle royale that truly got me to stop playing PUBG, which, to be fair, half of that is PUBG just being fucking dog shit at this point. But Warzone is Call of Duty's take on the battle royale, and it's Call of Duty's shooting and physics set, then put on with all these layers of battle royale stuff of needing to procure all these different weapons on site, but it also gives you like load. It solves the different like phases of the game where it's like it has the looting phase, the mid game, and the end game, and it's such a brilliant take on what a battle royale should be and how to keep it fun constantly. I cannot explain why Warzone is amazing in 45 seconds, but it's such a fun battle royale. It's free. Go fucking play Warzone. After Warzone is Mortal Kombat 11. This is the game finishing out the new trilogy of Mortal Kombat games, and it is they finally made a Mortal Kombat that's better than Mortal Kombat 9, and the story is amazing. I know I hate that fighting games have this reputation of having bad stories because NetherRealm, throughout Injustice and the recent Mortal Kombat games, have been proving that your fighting games can have an amazing story to them. And Mortal Kombat 11 has a fantastic motherfucking story, satisfying if you've been keeping up with the newer trilogy, but also satisfying to older fans of the franchise. They referenced the movie in so many ways that work so well, and this is all layered on top of the best fighting engine that they have ever made. Mortal Kombat 11 is NetherRealm's best game ever that they've ever made. It's fantastic, but I understand like who's recommending and then getting into Mortal Kombat at this point, but still really good. Somewhat shockingly, um, this is back to back with my number 65, which is Tekken 7. Um, I love Mortal Kombat a lot, but I feel like Tekken's easier to get more people on board with, and as a result, I've gotten to play it with actual people instead of playing against AI, which is largely what I've done in Mortal Kombat. But Tekken 7 is unbelievably fun to just pick up and goof around on with your friends. Like even if nobody knows how to do anything, they have this cool system where you can just hold down one of the triggers and press a face button and you'll do one of the like cooler moves, which isn't like as unbalanced as it sounds. Like it totally works in the context of the game because everyone can do it whenever, and it makes it accessible and fun. It's a super fun game to just watch get played. Tekken 7 fucking rules. After that is another game with 7 in the title, but it is the Final Fantasy VII remake, a remake of a game that I absolutely fucking do not like, and I think it's way too much praise. But Final Fantasy VII makes it not a shitty old JRPG and gives it real time combat, kind of mostly real time combat. You know what the fuck I mean? I won't say it recharacterizes, but it gives a lot more depth to every single character and makes them very compelling. Um, I didn't think I was going to like this game, but then kind of the more that I saw about it, I got really, really sold on it, and it's absolutely a fantastic thing to both play, to get the story of, and what it does for the meta narrative of what Final Fantasy is in the gaming landscape is really cool. Everyone should play Final Fantasy VII Remake. After that is the most Metroidvania that isn't Metroid. It is Axiom Verge. I don't speak as highly about this game as other people do. Mind you, this is still one of the best Metroidvanias ever made, and it's still super duper compelling. It's it's one of those games that I think benefits a lot if you understand a lot of the Metroidvania kind of tropes and what those games are about. I know Jason is playing it but ended up dropping it. I'm curious how much differently that would have gone down if he had maybe built his way up to it instead of kind of diving right in. But it's still a really, really good like love letter to old Metroidvanias done by a single person who largely worked on PGA Tour games, and it turned out fantastic. It's got a sequel coming up sometime next year that I'm very eagerly wanting to play. Oof. After Axiom Verge is Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal is fucking fantastic. It's really fun to play, but maybe suffers a little too much by. I think that the first new Doom was just balanced perfectly with the enemies you have, the weapons you have, and kind of your ways to get around it. Doom Eternal almost leans too much into the combat chess element where every enemy has a weapon you're supposed to use on them to beat them, and that makes it a lot more rigid. And it's like, okay, I see a marauder, I need to use the rocket launcher with this mod to beat him, and it gives you a lot less freedom in that way. But it's still a really, really fun first person shooter to just run and jump around and do all sorts of fucking killing of demons. Highly, highly recommend Doom Eternal still. Coming up after Doom Eternal is another puzzle box game, but this one is only in VR. It's called Static. And the crux of the game is that you're holding the controller, and then on screen, your hands are in a box. And you can move this box around, you're like twisting it around with your hands, and no instructions are given, and you just have to solve these different like little puzzle boxes. And it capitalizes on the ideas way better than Nog does. It's got like kind of this dry sciency humor to it. Like I don't it makes one think of Portal, but it's not quite Portal. Portal's more in your face. This is a lot more understated comparatively. It's almost a bummer that this is only in VR, but it kind of has to be in VR. But it's one of the best VR games. Up next is another really, really fun party game. It is Towerfall Ascension. This is the Celeste developer before they did Celeste. And it is a fun like arena where you're shooting arrows at each other and you can pick up arrows that miss, and you're just like bouncing around this arena trying to hit each other with arrows. A fun multiplayer like arena combat game. It's like Samurai Gun, but there's a decent amount more visual polish on it compared to Samurai Gun, while not as it's not as like tight and precise as Samurai Gun is, but it's one of the best recent kind of it came out during this like resurgence of the multiplayer kind of competitive game, like couch competitive. Highly recommend it. Take it to work a lot and we play it there. It's fantastic. Up next is Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 is a really fucking good game, much better than Dark Souls 2. And this was the one that came out after they've learned, this one came out post Bloodborne, so it's a lot faster, a lot snappier, a lot more aggressive, while still maintaining that kind of Dark Souls defensive style of play. Um, so many fun weapons, so many just cool things you can do, as well as being like the swan song of that. I don't want to say franchise because they're still making like new Souls like games, but it has so many like cool references and nods and lots of things to the older games while still having its own new cool stuff. Super fun PvP, super fun like online co-op. Dark Souls, hey, Dark Souls is fucking good. Uh, won't be the last time I say that. Number 58 is Until Dawn, which I mentioned back when I was talking about the Man of Medan Dark Pictures anthology. Until Dawn is a David Cage like narrative game, except way better than anything David Cage has ever fucking done before. You are tasked with getting a group of teenagers who are up on a mountain going through a just send up to all horror kind of tropes. You have to make this group of teenagers survive until the end of it. And it references so many different horror things. Like you had your monster thing, you have your slasher stuff, you have so many different, you've got like evil clown, you have so many things, and it's a really compelling and fun narrative thing, really good horror thing without being too terribly scary. um and then the layer of needing to keep these teenagers alive the entire time gives it a fun gameplay twist that a lot of those narrative games don't have. Up after that is the rhythm hell game Thumper. Thumper is a game that has got some good bass and percussion to it, where you are the beetle from the Journey album covers sliding across a cosmic highway, needing to power slide, jump, slam, and get through a series of obstacles set up by this spiky headed monster. The music in it is super super good and just makes you want to break shit while you're listening to it. It's a really good one. Just get some headphones on, the VR headset ideally if you have one, because it's fantastic in VR, and immerse yourself in it and just fucking pound out some really fun rhythm segments. It gets to the point where you have to stop relying on your eyes and rely more on what you can hear, because you can process the information so much faster. Fantastic rhythm. I don't want to say rhythm action, but fantastic rhythm game. After that is something completely different, opposite end of the spectrum. It is Donut County, a very fun game where you play as a adorable raccoon who is just trying to send holes to his friends. I'd say it's most comparable to something like a Katamari game where you're needing to you get stuff into your hole, and then it just kind of grows and grows and grows, so you can start just consuming larger and larger things, buildings. But it doesn't have the timer element to that Katamari does. Like it's more of a narrative driven experience. Like it's almost a walking simulator where you play as a whole. You kind of pretty much always have to hit the same things in the same order every time. There's not like there's no leaderboards. There's no like improving your style of playing Donut County, but it's incredibly funny and it's a fun, quick little jaunt. Highly recommended. It's on mobile, which honestly might be the best way to play it. After Donut County is Ace Combat 7. I have dipped my toes into previous Ace Combat games, but none of them clicked for me quite as well as Ace Combat 7 did. Something about the weird anime dogfighting elements of Ace Combat has always been something that appeals to me, but 7 absolutely fucking delivers on it better than any of the previous ones have. You can put a laser on your plane. It looks drop dead gorgeous. It has some cool it has stealth levels that are fantastic. It has 4 stealth segments that are really, really, really fucking good. Ace Combat 7 is amazing. It's on Game Pass, I think, but otherwise just play this fucking game with or without flight stick. Even the VR mode in it is incredibly fun. Which brings us to, naturally, Octodad, Dadliest Catch. Octodad is a game where you play as an octopus who is trying to convince everyone he is not an octopus. It's intentionally janky as you move this octopus man about these levels and need to complete normal tasks like pouring cereal or making coffee or even just accompanying your kids to an aquarium. As it's super fun through its jank and trying to complete these levels, and it's funny to watch and it's just like, oh man, look at this silly octopus man, while also having like the subtext and sub narrative of a person who just doesn't feel comfortable with themselves, someone living with anxiety that I think is super, super cool. I like Octodad quite a bit. Up next is Middle Earth Shadow of Mordor / Shadow of War. Like, you could put either of them into this slot. It's what I want to highlight is the Nemesis system. And I was just bitching about this the other day, how I still can't believe no game has aped the Nemesis system yet. And it must be either really hard to implement, or like Ryan said, maybe they have like a patent or trademark on it, like fucking Namco did with loading screen games there for a while. Um, but it is an Assassin's Creed styled game set in the Lord of the Rings universe that has really nothing to do with Lord of the Rings, and you are just killing orcs and working your way up chains, mind controlling them until you can get to their big orc bosses, controlling them, instilling your own like minions into their positions, and just building this really. It's just fun to just run around and kill these orcs, and you learn their likes, their dislikes, their fears, things that work well on them, things that they're good against. It's just fantastic. Play it even if you don't like Lord of the Rings, even slightly. Like me, I fucking hate Lord of the Rings. Up next is Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, a game that I feel like I'm very critical of, but also still really fucking love because when it's good, it's great. Um, this is the FromSoft team at making a new Tenchu, basically. It's a lot of parrying, and it's like Dark Souls, except they pigeonhole you into just using one single weapon, and that's this katana, and you have to parry, dodge around, you get a cool grappling hook. I wish it did more platforming and stealth stuff, but it's pretty much just kind of a FromSoft Dark Soulsy type game. But I still think it's really, really fun, albeit absolutely blown out of the water by Ghost of Tsushima recently, in my opinion. I absolutely love Ghost of Tsushima in comparison, but Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, despite being very aggressively unfriendly to pick up, is still a very fun game. After that is Puyo Puyo Tetris. It is Puyo Puyo mixed with Tetris, sometimes doing them both at the same time. I think that this idea of the crossover game is something that I really wish video games as a whole would do more. Like they did, like Crash Bandicoot Purple and Spyro Orange back on the Game Boy Advance. Like, I wish that there were more crossovers in video games. And Puyo Puyo Tetris having to do these two like legendary arcadey puzzle games at the same time is fantastic. Or sometimes it'll be like a Tetris board, and then it'll on a timer switch to a Puyo Puyo board, and you're having to like manage them both at the same time while having the rug kind of pulled out from under you frequently. But I think it's one of the best iterations of Tetris ever, just because of it's so unique and fun to play, and it's just cool. Play Puyo Puyo Tetris. It's on everything at this point. Um, Coming in at number 50 is a video game board game called Armello. It has different ways. It's a video game board game, and I feel like you couldn't do this game as a normal board game, but it's a fun strategy, adventure, resource getting, action fighting. Like, it's like Risk and all of these other things just kind of rolled into one game, and it's super, super cool. Play Armello if you like tabletop board games. It works fine solo, even better with friends, albeit it can take a little bit of time getting through a 4-person game just for everyone to take their turns. But Armello is really fucking cool, and it's also like on every platform at this point. And then the last game for this particular session is going to be the Sexy Brutale. Sexy Brutale? I don't know. It is a game that has the Majora's Mask-esque time loop, where it is a murder mystery that you are trying to solve, and you keep resetting the clock and going to different areas, figuring out all of these different little elements about this murder mystery. And it's super cool, and frankly, you shouldn't need anything more than it is a murder mystery with the Majora's Mask time resetting mechanic. People are always going to be in certain places at certain times, and it's your job to uncover the killer. Absolutely fantastic fucking little game. Cannot speak highly enough of it, but I don't think there's a lot I can really talk about without giving away too much. But play Sexy Brutale. So those are the great games of the previous generation. The games that I think every single person should play every single one of the games I just went through for one reason or another. But after this, we're going to be getting into the real shit. These are the ones that I feel super strongly about for one reason or another. and the ones that I will aggressively recommend. But we're also probably going to get into more of those games where they're known quantities. Like it's like, yeah, you know what to expect with that. So it's maybe a weirder recommendation, but I'm still going to fight hard for people to play them. That's all for this one, and I will see you next time.